I see the temp is coming up. It's 1 degree now. It was below 0 earlier. So 1 degree outside, but in here it's just shy of 80 degrees. 1 degree outside, but look at the greenery in here. Whole bunch of flowers blooming. Look at that. Lots of them coming. More of them on this side. Look at this little cluster of them. Huh? On the mountain in February. Look at that. As I work in here today, while we are surrounded by snow and cold outside, but in here it is hot and it's humid and the air is full of oxygen that the plants are giving off. Surrounded by all of this greenery that we created. We created this little slice of heaven by taking the tools that our Creator has given us. And what I mean by tools is our dreams, passions, desires, and the ability to go for it, and the willingness to try, and also the willingness to accept the mistakes that we make and learn from them. We didn't put all of these desires on the back burner. We didn't cast them aside as silly little dreams. We went for it. And we created all of this. And when I share it with others, it inspires others and gives them the willingness to try. It empowers them to believe that they can do these things. We are all taught as a young age to cast our dreams aside. They want to pour us into a mold and keep us there. That one life fits all that I've spoken about in the past. But if you just break free from the mold and just let those passions come to the surface and do something with them, you will bloom like these flowers are blooming here on the mountain in February. It's a wonderful thing. So I wasn't going to show the greenhouse for a while, but I have so many people asking about it. You know, they're intrigued with the project. They've been following the journey. And it's been an interesting endeavor, to say the least, as we didn't know if we'd be able to grow anything through the winter. It's hard enough just living up here in the winter, never mind try to grow stuff. So it's been a learn as we go process, and you guys are learning right along with me. And I'm just going to share all of the little blips and blunders along the way, like I said I would. So I'll bring you up to speed here. I put up this sheet of heavy plastic. I did it because the temps went down below 0. I was going to take it down this morning, but I think I'm just going to leave it up. It's going to block some of the daylight, but it's really the lesser of two evils. So I came in here yesterday morning, and these radishes, oh my God, I thought I lost them all. They looked horrible. Same with the lettuce. You see this leaf here is pretty buggered, but the whole group looked like that. The lettuce was laying flat on the ground, and it was all glossy, the way it looks like when it freezes. I couldn't believe it. I really thought we lost them. But as you can see, they bounced back. And I want to keep them this way. I don't want to lose anything now, not after all this time. So the lettuce has changed a bit since I've last shown you. It's growing slow, but it is growing. Okay, we got these new little guys here that are doing pretty good. The radishes are coming along. The stems are getting thicker, and sooner or later you'll start to see the bulbs in there. Of course, they're growing a heck of a lot slower than they do in the prime time in the summer, but they are growing. All right. This little group of lettuce just doesn't seem to be doing well, and I don't really know why, but I have hope for it. Now the beets, okay, I'm disappointed in the performance of the beets here. Now I know that the beets handled the cold weather, so if the plants were mature, I think that they would just do just dandy through the winter. But seedlings are struggling with the short days and the cold temps. Like the Swiss chard over here, I'll show you. You know, this stuff just keeps growing and growing and growing, and I've got to clip it again. About every 10 days we come in and we clip some of the Swiss chard and a little bit off of this kale plant. Now that Swiss chard were mature plants that at the end of the gardening season, I pulled them out of the garden and I put them in here. It was an experiment, and as you can see, it's been a success. We have been harvesting Swiss chard and kale about every 10 days through the winter. Now this bed here, I put this in maybe a month ago or so, and I planted some seedlings in here. I started the seedlings in the foam trays, and once they grew about that big, I put them in here. Well, they've grown a little bit since I transplanted them here, but very little. As you can see, the beets really haven't done much of anything. These Swiss chard seedlings I'm starting to see a difference in them actually every day. Like these little kales here, I'm seeing extra leaves coming along. They're picking up the pace because we're getting longer days. So what I have learned so far from this endeavor, plants that are cold hardy like kale and Swiss chard and beets, they do real well in the greenhouse as a mature plant, but the seedlings really struggle. So next year, at the end of the gardening season, I'm going to transplant the plants from the garden into the greenhouse a lot earlier than I did, and then I'm certain I will be able to harvest stuff all winter long. But yeah, these here, it's ready to snip a batch. Maybe we'll do that tonight. Now remember that shelf that I had going along here, and I took it out to put in the raised beds? Well, I cut a chunk of that shelf and I hung it up here. And this is the prime real estate of the greenhouse. Now these hanging pots here, these are pots of Shasta daisies that Mama started. They're really picking up the pace now. But these seeds were put in the dirt on December 13th. It took them a little longer than normal to germinate because it's not the best conditions here in the winter. But as you can see, they are doing good. These are growing in the pots for now because we can hang them and give them more sun and heat than just putting them down here. But when the garden is ready for them, they will pop out of this pot and get planted outdoors. And we have several of those little daisy plants to transplant once the ground is ready outside. Now this has been a learning curve for me. I've never really known anything about flowers. I like having them around. They beautify the yard. They attract butterflies and bees and hummingbirds and stuff like that, and I like having those around. But really, to be honest with you, the only thing I knew about flowers was the difference between annuals and perennials. That was pretty much it. You know, Lori would buy annuals and plant them, and they were nice, and then at the end of the season, that was the end of them. That was it. So winter was already upon us, and I saw the pots of petunias and pansies and stuff she had hanging out here, and the mums like I told you about. And then I go, well, I'm just going to bring them into the greenhouse and see what happens. I didn't expect them to come back to life, because I didn't know. Well, let me tell you, all of the flowers that you see in here blooming were the flowers that were hanging outside that looked dead. So we brought them in here. They didn't do anything. They looked dead. Lori cut them back, and they sprung back to life. So her annuals have become perennials, in a sense. When I was a little boy, I had a deep-rooted desire to go live in the woods when I grew up. So that's the direction that I took my life in. And I used to read everything I could get my hands on back then on this type of lifestyle. It would be Outdoor Life magazine and Sports Afield, Fur Fish Game, and Field and Stream. And remember in the old Field and Stream magazines, I don't even know if that publication is still out there. If it is, it's probably just all advertisements. But in the back of that, there was like a half a page called Taps Tips, and it was just all hunting and fishing tips. I used to have a binder full of those that I would store, for reference material later on. And I watched shows like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom and Little House on the Prairie and the Waltons. And as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to grow up and be like John Walton. I wanted to be like him when I grew up. Now, I knew that Ralph Waite, he was playing John Walton, and of course I could separate the two, that he was just an actor. But the character he portrayed was a man of integrity. He had integrity. He was a hard-working man, strong family values. He had integrity. And he knew how to make a living, not just by going in and punching someone else's clock. So a lot of those shows were influence on me. Now you think about it, right? Both Little House on the Prairie and the Waltons, okay? You had Charles Ingalls, who was predominantly a farmer, okay? But he made furniture, and he did this, and he worked in a mill, and he did this and that, and all kinds of odd jobs, and homesteaded, all right? They were homesteaders. And the Waltons were the same way. John Walton would go off and get a job whenever he needed to, but primarily he made his living from his homestead. They cut timber, sold firewood, and fixed this and that for people. But you know what I'm saying. So that lifestyle is what I was interested in. And it was a pure, wholesome lifestyle. Maybe later in my teen years, I'd get the Mother Earth News magazine and read through that, and it would just be like just a pure, wholesome lifestyle. So that's what attracted me to it. But I got to tell you, nowadays, I don't know about that. A few weeks back, I shared my thoughts with you how I'm pretty disheartened over the way that, I'm going to say, the newer generation has taken this lifestyle, the direction that they have gone with it.
So what I'm doing is I'm getting my off-grid firewood that we cut in the off-grid forest.
As opposed to the on-grid forest.
Hey, I found an off-grid pine cone. These are the tasty ones.
Oh, an off-grid chickadee. Should I arch my back? Ooh.
Mama's sticking a caboose way out for the fancy thumbnail. This is off the grid.
Ooh, firewood.
And she's keeping it real on the homestead. This is modern homesteading, huh? Well, this ain't how the Waltons did it.
Off-grid. Forest. Look at me.
Man, I don't care who you are. This is some crazy shit right here.
And I'm filling my off-grid bird feeder. Look at me. And I'm bringing it into my off-grid cabin. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
Frankie and the boss out walking in the woods, living life happy and free. Tracks in the snow everywhere they go. There's a pokey way up in that tree. A beaver built a pond where they have some fun, taking life a day at a time. Best friends until the end. Frankie and the boss. Frankie and the boss. Frankie and the boss.